Choose war or capitulation. What challenge did Xi Jinping throw at Donald Trump? This is a historic moment. Why did Putin embarrass himself at the meeting with Aliyev? And where is he ready to meet with Volodymyr Zelensky? We'll talk about all this right now. This is the project Razborka. My name is Alexander Prepodobny. Friends, let me introduce our guest, Yuriy Rashkin. So friends, let's welcome Yuriy Rashkin to the Razborka project. Public figure, YouTube channel Raskin Report. Please make sure to subscribe there. As usual, the link is in the description. Yuriy, we're glad to see you.
Greetings to you.
There's plenty to start with. Look, Trump is making statements. Well, actually, Pete Hegseth, the US Secretary of Defense, says that Trump has ordered the Pentagon to prepare to contain Russia and China. That's quite a twist. What do you think about this news?
Well, I think he's jealous because what else can he do? He wasn't invited to Beijing. They didn't let him in. He didn't end up there. As a result, there was a party, but he wasn't there. And after all, he's supposed to be the owner of the club where everyone hangs out. So I think, of course, he needs to order the Pentagon. It's time to bomb everyone in the world because that's not how you treat Trump. But most likely he'll cool down, come to his senses, and nothing will come of it. Because after all, part of the reason why Putin has such high status in China right now isn't because of his disgraceful war in Ukraine, but because he's keeping the president of the United States on a short leash. And that, of course, I think would raise the status of any dictator, because the way Trump behaves right now, we're just watching to see if he's alive or not. And the question about the difference between him and D. Vance, and what do you think, D. Vance? Well, at least it seems like he's not in love with Putin. So there are different aspects to look at here, but Pete Hegseth, when it comes to making decisions, neither can he make decisions, nor do people, so to speak, trust the decisions he makes. At most, some unpopular decision might be pinned on him, like stopping aid to Ukraine. But in principle, he only expresses the will. So if he says something, it's not his own idea, it's something that was passed on to him. And here I think Trump is simply dissatisfied. He would like to be respected, but he isn't respected. But he behaves in such an irresponsible way that, of course, he can't expect anything different. Accordingly, there is no trust in him whether he's alive or not.
Yuriy, what do you think about his post claiming that the so-called axis of evil countries are plotting a conspiracy against America? After that, the Russians, represented by Ushakov, actually trolled Trump and said, "No, come on, what are you talking about? No one is plotting any conspiracy?" With a smile, a smirk. Does he even understand where all this is heading? Or is his reaction just at the level of personal offense? And at the moment, he's the president of the most powerful country, the United States of America. So will it just remain an emotional grievance? Will there be any actual steps taken or not?
Well, probably when the king agrees to be naked, that's apparently an emotional decision. For Trump, I think what we all need is for there to be some discord among all these guys. And partly maybe because one of them wasn't invited to the party he wanted to get into. Accordingly, that is precisely what he will perceive as something profoundly and unequivocally negative here, not, once again, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine or any other geopolitical event that should ostensibly have a significant impact here, but rather some deeply personal quarrels and internal disagreements, which, of course, do indeed matter a great deal in his particular perspective and overall assessment of the situation. In this sense, when people tell me, and I see in the comments, suspicions that supposedly Putin poisoned Trump at the meeting, and this idea seems almost offensive to me, because how can people who watch how I reason, who listen to how I discuss American politics, the relationship between Putin and Trump, say such things except as a joke? Because to think that for Putin, there is a person more valuable than Trump is simply impossible. Maybe Xi Jinping, but he wouldn't have that status with Xi Jinping if he weren't already right now controlling the relationship with the American president. So you can only imagine here, for example, getting the idea across to Trump that it was Putin who poisoned him, that he feels so unwell because Putin poisoned him. Then in that sense, let's try to push this idea for Trump. Well, in that case, it probably needs to be done in English. And for everyone else, well, really, he's operating on the level of a conspiracy. He feels that he has been betrayed by some, betrayed by others. It's a mafia-like structure, and at some point they will lose that trust. In Stalin's case, it actually took an invasion deep into the Soviet Union for him to realize, well, basically an invasion of the Soviet Union, for him to understand that he had been betrayed. That's it, yes. A treacherous war when there was trust and it was betrayed. And as for Putin, well, China might, of course, insult Trump, but he respects authoritarian leaders. And he respects Putin both as an authoritarian leader and as Putin himself. So in the end, he'll swallow it. I think for now, I just don't believe that. Again, where is the action? Words, words, words. So my suspicion is that Trump will just swallow it and won't accuse Putin of anything, and Putin will protect Trump like the apple of his eye.
Well, if only he really did protect him. Look, Putin is making statements right now. Here's his latest joint communique from China. Well, he said a lot, but let's focus on what concerns us here and now. As for a meeting with Zelensky, I don't rule out such meetings, but is there any point in them? If Zelensky is ready, Putin says, let him come. Where? To Moscow. The meeting will take place. But what does come to Moscow even mean? It means there won't be a meeting. It means that everything Trump says about a possible meeting between Putin and Zelensky is nonsense, it's fantasy, it's something made up. So should we even react to this? Please tell me.
Again, perhaps in English, because what is truly happening under the name of the peace process is simply a theatrical performance for an audience of precisely one, Donald Trump. Because right now, it seems to me there is a consensus forming that given Trump's attitude toward Putin, Trump can't be pushed out of the group of 7 civilized democratic countries because he would be quite happy to, go to Beijing instead and pay a visit there. That's why he needs to be kept involved with this almost fake peace process. Well, it's just interesting. If Trump realizes he's being led by the nose, then what will he do? But on the other hand, in principle, he doesn't really mind being led by the nose if he's getting paid for it, if there's a deal for him, and he gets something out of it. Let's not forget, after all, he's a hustler and a cheapskate. And with all these maneuvers, so to speak, there's definitely work to be done. There's room for all countries to be involved. But a meeting between Zelensky and Putin, can you really imagine a genuine peace process? When Egypt and Israel decided to make peace, their leaders, there are photos, are smiling, they're together, because they came to the conclusion that peace is better than war. Well, I just can't imagine a smiling Zelensky, a smiling Putin, and a smiling Trump together in Moscow. I mean, either or you have to. None of this really adds up. It's impossible. Something needs to change. So what Putin is proposing right now is just blatant trolling because he believes that he has either ended up on top of this mountain or he's trying to play the part of someone who has ended up on top of this mountain since Ukraine is destroying his resources. And in this sense, it seems to me that he's also, frankly speaking, a poorly dressed king, to put it mildly, because his country is being destroyed and all his oil refining capabilities are diminishing. And how should I put it? Well, Russia isn't getting any stronger from this. It's China that's getting stronger. The countries that are standing by and not fighting, they're the ones getting stronger. We'll see if Trump eventually says that this is just some sham process, which apparently it seems they still, well, he himself said that apparently they still need to fight a bit to give them some time. Maybe he's waiting for Putin to go bankrupt. Maybe he's waiting for anything at all. But he doesn't want to get involved in this because it would ruin his relationship with Putin. And for now, I'm just really glad about what I hear and see when we talk, read, and discuss that 3,350 Iris missiles are supposed to be delivered to Ukraine, at least through allies, because selling directly to Ukraine, well, apparently Putin wouldn't be happy about that either. So this feeling that the American president is on a short leash is, of course, unpleasant, but it's not just unpleasant for me.
Yuri, do you understand what the issue is here? It seems like there are ways to maneuver, but when Putin says if the Ukrainian authorities want to be legitimate, they must hold a referendum. But you can't hold a referendum under martial law. So Putin is basically proposing some absurd event, and then he himself gives the answer that it's impossible. I mean, what more does he need to say directly to make it clear that no one is going to stop the war? And most importantly, let me put the question this way. Now, with these new arguments, will Europeans be able to explain to Trump that America needs to get involved? Because the further this goes, the more the reputation of the United States will just be left with nothing. Zeros, sand, dust. I don't even know what analogy to use. They're basically just saying to your face, this is how we're going to do things. And we just kept going in circles about meeting you in Alaska. It doesn't accomplish anything.
Well, of course, because it's a meeting between Trump and Putin. Putin How could Trump not put pressure on Putin? We're seeing this confrontation happening on two levels, I think, on the level of actions and on the level of words. And when we look at the rhetoric, I think Putin's rhetoric, here Trump is kind of showing himself on the battlefield because Trump wants peace and Putin says he wants peace too. But it's just that this version of peace doesn't suit Ukraine, which also says it wants peace. So everyone is running around saying they only want peace because apparently none of them are able to say, well, who actually wants war? So in a way, everything seems clear here. We're holding hands and moving forward together, but it's unclear where to and how because in reality, this isn't happening. In reality, Putin can't achieve anything. Ukraine won't stop resisting, and Trump won't stop wanting the Nobel Peace Prize. So here I just find it interesting what a wise thing the Nobel Committee did by giving that prize to Barack Obama, because now it's Trump who wants it, because this is also wild jealousy and a lack of self-confidence that he feels the need to compete with Barack Obama. You'd think he could have just said, you know, Barack Obama behaved badly when it came to Crimea. He should have ignored the fact that there was no government in Kyiv and just gone ahead and kicked Putin's ass himself so that Putin would know. Well, that's how it turned out. So what now? So I see that Putin won't stop and Trump still wants it, and he wants that Nobel Prize that Obama got. So what's next? And next there will just be words? He shouldn't notice, but if it benefits him to notice something, he does. When it doesn't benefit him, he ignores it.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Yuri, let's talk in general about your impressions of the SCO in China today. By the way, there was a parade that Putin attended. I noticed that Xi Jinping wore a tunic, and as some people say, he looked like Mao Zedong, others say Stalin. Well, both options, let's say, if he really does associate himself that way and wants to look like that, it's not very good, to put it mildly. What do you think about what happened overall? Did it have any impact on Trump? Did it have any impact on Americans? Tell us. Are Americans in general frightened by how China looks right now?
Now, I think we can truly understand what various political commentators and astute observers meant when they emphatically stated that Donald Trump's much anticipated march, which was intended to be a grand display, actually looked kind of feeble, indeed quite weak and lacking in any real power. It seemed rather sad, almost pathetic, as if, well, it's not entirely clear what its true purpose or intended message was supposed to be. It just didn't look like a proper military parade at all, lacking the expected pomp and circumstance. And Russia doesn't really have the strength to hold military parades anymore either. Their parade has also become more of a decorative event. So where can we see a proper military parade these days where lots of people march in large numbers, dressed in immaculate, beautiful uniforms? In China. Wow. And at the same time, they told us that they won World War II, and everything else is just, well, that's how history gets rewritten. 80 years later, it turns out that the great victor of World War II is China. There you have it. And when this Mao Zedong was riding in his limousine with microphones set up in front of him, and he looked as menacing as he possibly could, well, yes, this is the kind of authoritarian leader for the 21st century. Before, there was Stalin, then Mao, and now Xi. And on top of that, he comes across as good-natured, like you should practically worship him. You know, it could have been worse, right? He's even merciful. So that's how it is. Those were my first impressions. But I can't say I looked into it too deeply. After all, in the United States, again, we had just recovered from the fact that the president survived and the House of Representatives returned to session. And now there's the never-ending Epstein case. So we'll see how it all unfolds. The fact that China appears so powerful militarily is, of course, a reminder that our Minister of Defense is Pete Hackstead. This means that our army now, well, how should I put it in some sense, is not what it used to be. But a lot depends on the commander-in-chief. But here we have, what's his name, Taco? So to say that we have any security guarantees for anyone here, well, I wouldn't. It seems now at some point Trump will have to do something. I'm just afraid that he'll decide to respond to the parade in China by trying to seize Venezuela. And if he does, because in a sense he needs to show something, because among these tough guys, well, Trump bombed, he says he bombed Iran's nuclear program. But it seems to me that China is now continuing this competition. So this arms race, which Trump would basically like to drag us back into the Soviet Union, the Cold War era, where success is measured by your armies, by how many troops you have marching in the parade. Trump is perfectly comfortable with that world. The only interesting thing here is who will outlast whom, and whether Biden will be sitting at Trump's funeral.
Well, the point is that Xi Jinping is speaking quite directly. And honestly, I can't recall the last time a Chinese leader said something like this. Today, humanity once again faces a choice between peace and war, dialogue and confrontation, mutually beneficial cooperation, or a zero-sum game, Xi Jinping said, without going into details. But that's obvious. The question for Trump is, what about you? How will you respond? Is he afraid of things like this? What do you think? Is he scared to make decisions or give answers after such statements, which in my opinion sound pretty unambiguous?
I sincerely hope that Donald Trump is truly starting to fully realize as he watches these unfolding scenes on television, and he genuinely loves, profoundly understands, and deeply values the medium of television, just precisely how incredibly deep in significant trouble he actually is at this very moment. Because his favorite, whom for some reason he hoped to pull away from China, he practically gave everything to this favorite except for recognizing Crimea as Russian. And his idol is standing right next to this very Chinese leader, the one Trump supposedly competes with, and, so to speak, at his right hand. And it truly feels as if Xi Jinping is here, standing like a powerful and absolute ruler, a formidable Khan with two loyal and imposing knights positioned at his sides. One of them, the North Korean leader, that very menacing and dangerous vampire, and on the other side, the equally significant and influential Russian leader. And this is what it means, what China actually threatens the world with. And again, what can Trump say in response to this? What will Donald Trump truly say to this besides merely whining and complaining about Vladimir Putin? Well, he certainly can attempt to say something, he can even threaten, but it's very much like a dog that growls loudly but doesn't actually bite. And it's obvious, it's noticeable. And besides, there's no parade at all. And the economy looks suspicious, and Trump is acting like a complete clown and madman. And more countries are now looking at China as a more stable partner than the USA, where after the elections, it's unclear which idiot will come to power and where the country will turn. That's why China absolutely has its moment right now. What will they do with this moment? And that's interesting, so to speak. Now, we will, in a sense, well, we should have given it to Putin. If we give Putin a healing, that means China can now look more actively at Taiwan. That's why I'm even curious how the view from the apparatus in Beijing was they were watching, what's it called, Taipei. So I see here, in a sense, still a bigger, how should I put it, these parades, what are they saying? That we have something you don't, but on the other hand, China, generally speaking, has more experience with diplomatic and economic pressure than with military. So maybe this speaks to their ability to supply weapons. In general, in any case, we see that Trump is giving in. He isn't fighting back. He isn't giving the kind of response that's needed. His actions are leading to the collapse of his popularity in his own country. And now we're waiting and wondering what President J.D. Vance will do. Is Trump still there, or is he gone?
Yes, it should be noted in conclusion that China has unveiled a huge number of new ballistic missiles capable of reaching virtually any point in the world, as well as electronic warfare systems. And in this regard, China has indeed made quite an, well, intimidating impression on those who are simply planning to be friends with it. Yuri, just to conclude, do you not think that it is already impossible to change the course of events? That China has gained such power and influence thanks to Putin's impunity, right? With the help, let's say, of the complete acquiescence of the new administration, that there are no tools left to stop China, considering that Russia is just a glove?
Well, look, there are other significant countries such as Japan, Australia, and various other regional powers that will undoubtedly try to defend their own sovereign space and respective interests. However, China still possesses plenty of available room to considerably expand its influence within their immediate region, as well as throughout the vast continent of Africa. And the United States is now showing its weakness, even when it comes down to the details, point by point, because in terms of NATO, we look suspicious and there is no trust in us. When it comes to humanitarian aid around the world, now we've cut all of that off and strangled it. And who steps in to take our place? China. And after that, Putin gives a speech in Beijing and talks about de-dollarization, which in a sense is a natural result of the policies being carried out by his man in Washington. And after that, well, what now? So that's precisely the kind of country we currently have. That's indeed Donald Trump. And those are the significant consequences that follow. How can we even compete with Denmark at this point? Because Denmark is a NATO member, but we really want Greenland, since the trade war with China is still ongoing and China keeps going. Not only are they having a parade, but now they won't even give us magnets. It turns out that in the United States, our missiles and fighter jets really need those rare earth minerals. Even Trump recently wrote, tweeted, and fussed about it, saying, "Give us our minerals for our missiles." That's the kind of position China is putting us in, that we urgently need these minerals. Why the hell did we start a trade war with them? But why the hell did Trump fall out with Modi, the Indian leader, after the U.S. spent 30 years trying to build better relations with India? Okay, fine. Now, every time Russia does something, we're just going to punish India even more. And how long is that going to last? Plus, keep in mind, this isn't even about their main exports. This is idiocy. Idiocy at the highest level, and it's easy to spot. So here we're just witnessing the collapse of this American Pax Americana, and no one thought this would happen because it would be so stupid to trip over your own shoelaces. No, we can even go further and kick ourselves in the balls.
Yeah, that was funny. Thank you. Yuriy Rashkin, host of the YouTube channel Rashkin Report, public figure, and Rock County, Wisconsin board member, was on the air for the Razborka project. There wasn't much optimism, but I have to say it was interesting. Thank you very much, Yuriy. Goodbye. All the best.
All the best.